Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a topic that, let's be honest, gets a pretty bad rap: managerial control. You hear control in a business setting and probably instantly think of red tape or some boss breathing down your neck, right? But as we unpack Chapter 8 today, you're going to see that controlling is actually the hidden engine keeping every successful organization from, well, completely falling apart.
To really get why this matters, let's start with a little true crime. Picture this: a super successful New York City import-export company pulling in about $25 million a year. Everything looks fantastic on paper. But behind the scenes, two highly trusted employees were quietly siphoning off $3 million over the course of 2.5 years. So how on earth does a company just lose $3 million right under its own nose?
The short answer? A massive, catastrophic lack of managerial control. Eventually, management got suspicious and brought in some outside experts from New Jersey. These investigators installed a hidden software program that literally logged every single keystroke those employees made. Turns out, these guys were processing orders, immediately deleting them from the books, and just pocketing the cash to secretly build their own rival company from within. They only got busted when the software flagged a plan to steal a huge shipment of electronics late one night, allowing police to hide in the warehouse rafters and arrest them. Crazy, right? It just goes to show, without a rock-solid control system, corporate disaster isn't just possible. It's pretty much guaranteed.
Okay, let's dive into this so you can build your own unshakable management playbook. We're going to cover what controlling actually is, why good control matters, the limitations of control, how planning and controlling are essentially twins, and finally, the 5-step process.
Section 1. What is controlling, really? Let's take a quick second to bust the myth that controlling just means being a dictatorial micromanager staring over your employees' shoulders. That's a total misconception.
Now, if we look at the classic textbook definition from Kuntz and O'Donnell, they say managerial control is the measurement of accomplishment against the standard and correction of deviations to assure attainment of objectives. Okay, I know, that sounds incredibly formal, but try framing it as this dynamic, forward-looking action. Think of an airline's departure control system, right? It automates all the chaotic airport operations: baggage, check-ins, watch lists. It's constantly measuring the messy reality against the standard of a scheduled safe departure. It corrects deviations instantly, so the ultimate objective, getting that plane in the air, actually happens.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when you don't have those systems in place. Notice the stressed manager just pulling his hair out in the background while his team looks completely lost in their own reports. Without control, you can't manage situations intelligently, and you definitely can't fix things before the damage is done to the business. Moving on to Section 2, why good control matters. Let's look at the actual benefits, keeping that $3 million embezzlement case in the back of our minds. These benefits are absolute game changers for any business. First, it accomplishes organizational goals by constantly measuring progress and keeping everyone on track. Second, it judges how accurate your standards are so you can adapt when the market changes. Third, it maximizes resource efficiency, which means way less wastage. Fourth, believe it or not, it actually motivates employees. People like knowing exactly what's expected of them and how they'll be appraised. And finally, it ensures order and discipline. By keeping a close check on activities, it minimizes dishonest behavior. Remember, that's exactly what was missing in that New York firm before they brought in the keystroke monitors.
All right, Section 3, the limitations of control. We do need to acknowledge that control systems are not magic wands, and implementing them comes with some serious human and financial pushback. We've got to bring this textbook theory back to the real world. Employees often actively resist control systems. They frequently see it as a direct restriction on their personal freedom. You put in CCTV cameras at work, and people are naturally going to push back, feeling undervalued or just overly scrutinized. And beyond just human resistance, there are structural headaches. First off, it is notoriously tricky to set hard numbers for qualitative things. How do you accurately measure employee morale or job satisfaction? You really can't. Plus, managers have zero control over massive external factors, things like sudden tech shifts, wild competition, or new government policies. And let's not forget, control systems are expensive. They cost a lot of time and money. A smaller company often simply cannot afford a massive monitoring setup, so you always have to make sure the system actually pays for itself. Which brings us to Section 4, planning and controlling, the inseparable twins. This is all about the tension between making a great plan and actually executing it.
So, planning and controlling are considered the inseparable twins of management. Planning is the intellectual, forward looking part. It's prescriptive. You're setting the standards and deciding the course of action. Controlling, on the flip side, is evaluative and backward looking. It's the postmortem, where you check if those plans actually happened in reality. But here's the kicker: planning without controlling is basically just making a wish. If you don't track progress, it's meaningless. And controlling without a plan is totally blind. If you didn't set a standard in advance, what are you even measuring against? They absolutely reinforce each other. Now let's look at Section 5, the 5-step process. This is our practical playbook, mimicking a manager's actual step-by-step workflow. Let's move to the actual workflow and see how this builds a complete system. Step 1, set your standards. Step 2, measure performance. Step 3, compare the actual performance to the standards you set. Step 4, analyze any deviations. And Step 5, take corrective action. Let's map out this journey. Looking really quickly at Step 1, setting standards means picking distinct, preferably quantitative, benchmarks for different departments. Say for production, your standard might be the sheer number of units produced and their quality defect rate. Over in finance, it's all about capital flow and liquidity. Nailing down those exact metrics makes Step 2, measuring, and Step 3, comparing the results, infinitely easier. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Step 4. This is where you analyze deviations, and it's where things get truly strategic. Not all deviations are created equal. There are two principles here: critical point control and management by exception, that will literally save a manager from burning out trying to fix every single tiny error in the company. Let me explain the difference, because it's absolutely crucial. Critical point control means zoning in on key result areas that make or break the business. Think of it like this. In a factory, a 5% spike in labor costs is vastly more dangerous than a 15% bump in postage fees, right? You watch labor costs like a hawk, because that is a critical point. Now, management by exception relies on the idea that if you try to control everything, you end up controlling nothing. It means you only step in when things cross a permissible limit. If your plan says a 2% bump in labor costs is fine, you ignore a 2% deviation. Let your team handle the routine stuff. But if it hits 5%, boom, that demands priority action from top management. And that brings us to the final step, Step 5, taking corrective action. This is the whole point: fixing the deviations you just analyzed. If a team is looking at a plummeting sales graph, they drop a remedial plan. If a project is behind schedule, maybe you assign overtime. Missing production targets? Might be time to retrain the staff. Or, if the deviation was caused by outside forces completely beyond your control, your corrective action might simply be revising your original standards to be more realistic. So here's what it all boils down to. Without a rigorous system of managerial control, even your absolute best plans will inevitably go awry. Sometimes that just means missing a sales target, but other times, it means employees walking out the back door with $3 million. By setting clear standards, carefully measuring performance, focusing on critical deviations, and taking swift action, you turn a blind plan into an unstoppable force. So, what are you controlling today?